Zuri, why do you dare to wear the necklace of Kiana, Queen of the Ocean?
Who's there? What do you want from me?
What would you do if an ancient power chose you? For Zuri, this isn't just a question, it's her reality. Imagine a serene evening in the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia, where a small river winds through golden fields and whispering woods. This is where Zuri, a curious young girl, often comes to find peace. But today, that peace is shattered. As Zuri leaned over the river to admire the strange shell-made necklace she had just found, an unsettling sensation crept through the air. The necklace, shimmering with hues as vibrant as the galaxy, seemed to radiate an indescribable energy. Before she could make sense of it, a soft yet commanding whisper echoed from the water. "Why do you dare wear the necklace of Kiana, Queen of the Ocean?" Zuri froze, her heart racing as she looked around, but no one was there. Then her eyes drifted back to the river, and the most extraordinary sight unfolded. 2 tiny fish swam near the surface, but what left her utterly speechless was that they were talking. "Can she hear us?" one fish asked, its round eyes wide with amazement. "I think so. Look, she's staring at us," the other replied, its voice trembling with unease. Zuri stood rooted to the spot, her eyes wide with shock. You're talking to me," she stammered, her voice a mix of disbelief and awe. But before she could get an answer, the 2 fish darted back into the water, vanishing instantly. Zuri stood alone by the riverbank, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the necklace. A strange, heavy silence blanketed the air, as if the river itself was holding its breath. A chill wind swept past, causing Zuri to shiver, not from the cold, but from the unease coursing through her. Suddenly, a stronger voice, firm and filled with warning, boomed from the distance, as though it was carried by waves from the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. "Zuri, return the necklace before it's too late." She spun around, her wide eyes searching the landscape. But there was no one there. The trees stood still, and the river's surface was eerily calm. Zuri tried to steady her breathing, but the question echoed louder in her mind. What is this necklace? Who is Kiana? And why is it so important? Zuri gazed down at the river, its waters now reflecting the dim glow of the setting sun. But instead of the usual warmth, the scene felt heavy, almost foreboding. The wind had stilled, the birds were silent, and even the gentle ripples seemed to carry a weight she couldn't comprehend. It was as if the world around her had paused, waiting for something momentous to happen. Her fingers unconsciously traced the shells of the necklace, their smooth surfaces cool against her skin. Her mind raced with thoughts. Could this necklace be more than just an ornament? Could it be a gateway to a world I've never known? Yet fear began to creep into her heart. What if keeping it brings disaster? Should I return it? She glanced at the river again, searching for answers in its depths, but all she saw was a faint shadow under the water, moving briefly before vanishing into the dark. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, Zuri turned and began walking back home. But she knew deep down that she had stumbled upon something far greater than herself. The necklace wasn't just a trinket, it was a key to secrets beyond her wildest dreams. Yet one question loomed over her thoughts. What truly is this necklace? And is Zuri ready to face whatever lies ahead? She spun around, her eyes scanning the landscape, but there was no one there. Where was the voice coming from? Was it human, or something else entirely? A sense of unease wrapped itself around her, but at the same time, an insatiable curiosity burned within her chest. What is this necklace? Zuri wondered aloud, her trembling hands brushing over the shimmering seashells hanging around her neck. Who is Kiana? And why is this necklace so important? Zuri stood by the river, feeling a profound shift in the air around her. The wind still blew, but the familiar rustling of reeds was gone. Birds that had been chirping moments ago were now eerily silent, as if the river itself had stolen their voices. Even the gentle flow of the water seemed heavier, as if whispering secrets Zuri couldn't yet comprehend. Her heartbeat quickened, a sense of unease growing stronger. It felt as though thousands of unseen eyes were watching her. The river's surface darkened, and she thought she saw a shadow moving beneath the water. The shape grew larger, more distinct, but just as Zuri bent down to get a closer look, it vanished. Swallowing hard, Zuri's mind flooded with questions. Why did the voice call my name? What secrets does this necklace hold to make even the river change? She felt her body pulled taut between fear and curiosity. Part of her wanted to hurl the necklace into the river and run home as fast as she could. Yet another part, stronger and more determined, urged her to hold on to it. Could this necklace be the key to the larger world I've always longed to explore? She wondered. But before she could make sense of her thoughts, something made Zuri freeze in place. Gentle ripples began spreading across the water as if the river itself was breathing. The surface suddenly lit up with an otherworldly glow, and a towering figure, emanating authority and mystery, began to emerge faintly through the shimmering water. "Zuri!" the voice called again, slower this time, and layered with a chilling challenge. "That necklace does not belong to humans. It belongs to Queen Kiana, and you have no right to keep it. Return it or face the consequences." The warning struck Zuri like a thunderclap, freezing her thoughts in their tracks. Before she could respond or even process what was happening, the river's surface darkened once more, and an oppressive silence fell over everything. She stood there, paralyzed, her mind swirling with 1,000 unanswered questions. Looking down at the necklace around her neck, her trembling fingers brushed over each delicate seashell. "Is this a gift or a curse?" she murmured, her voice barely audible. Zuri didn't know the answer, but deep down, she understood one thing. This was only the beginning. The strange voices, the talking fish, and the river's eerie silence, all of it pointed to something far larger, something beyond her imagination. The world she had longed to explore had finally opened its doors. But Zuri couldn't shake the feeling that the journey ahead would test her in ways she never could have anticipated. The next morning, Zuri stepped out of her house, and from her very first steps, she sensed something was off. The villagers' gazes were different, curious, almost reverent. The elderly paused their work to look at her. Children ran after her, pointing with wide-eyed wonder. Whispers echoed all around, but Zuri couldn't make out what they were saying. "Did I do something wrong?" she thought, glancing nervously around, her brows furrowed in confusion. Things grew stranger. When Zuri entered the bustling market, a familiar vendor greeted her with a wide smile. But instead of simply handing her the goods, he refused her payment. "Zuri, today it's free for you," the vendor said, his eyes glowing with a strange sense of respect. "Free? But why?" Zuri stammered, her voice laced with disbelief. The vendor merely smiled, a mysterious expression on his face, and said no more. Moments later, a nearby child stumbled and fell, but instead of crying, the child got up, laughing joyfully, running towards Zuri as if she'd brought them immense happiness. Zuri stood amidst it all, her heart caught in a whirlwind of emotions, part delight, part fear. "Is all this because of the necklace?" she whispered to herself, her fingers unconsciously brushing the shimmering seashells hanging around her neck. That night, Zuri couldn't stop thinking about the day's events. Restless, she left her house and made her way to the familiar riverbank. The pale moonlight stretched across the water's surface, and the gentle ripples seemed to soothe her chaotic thoughts. But as she stood there, a shadow appeared in the distance, emerging through the misty haze. It was a tall woman, her long black hair cascading over her shoulders, and her eyes shimmering like gemstones. Her dress sparkled as though woven from the water itself, and with each step the river seemed to ripple in harmony with her movements. Zuri held her breath, a chill running down her spine, yet she couldn't tear her gaze away from the ethereal figure before her. The woman looked directly at her, and when she spoke, her voice was deep, resonant, and carried the weight of the river itself. "I am Kiana, Queen of the Ocean." Zuri's mouth fell open, her voice barely above a whisper. "Kiana? The Ocean Queen?" Zuri's mouth fell open, her voice barely above a whisper. Kiana. The Ocean Queen. Kiana stepped closer, her piercing gaze locking onto the necklace.
That necklace belongs to me. It holds power you do not understand. Return it to me immediately.
Her voice rose in authority, reverberating across the still waters. Zuri instinctively clasped the necklace tighter, her heart swelling with a sudden sense of attachment. But this necklace makes me feel special. It brings me joy, attention, things I've never had before. Why must I give it back? Kiana's eyes narrowed, her gaze as sharp as a blade. That necklace is not for humans. It is a symbol of power, authority, and responsibility that you cannot bear. However, her voice softened, though it carried an undercurrent of challenge.
If you wish to keep it, you must prove yourself worthy.
Prove myself? Zuri asked, her voice trembling, though her curiosity sparkled in her eyes. You must pass 3 trials, Kiana replied, a cold smile playing on her lips.
Only then will you truly deserve the power the necklace bestows. Fail, and you will lose not just the necklace, but yourself as well.
Kiana's words hit Zuri like a hammer. Her heart raced, her fists clenching involuntarily. 3 trials, power, responsibility? What exactly was this necklace, and why was it so important? Without another word, Kiana turned and disappeared into the mist, leaving Zuri alone under the moonlit sky. She looked down at the necklace around her neck, its glow faint yet mesmerizing, and felt the weight of something far greater than herself settling over her shoulders. Do I have the strength to face what lies ahead? Zuri whispered to herself, fear and an unquenchable curiosity battling within her heart. The stillness of the river offered no answers, but deep inside, Zuri knew this was just the beginning. When Kiana led Zuri to the site of her first challenge, a chill ran down Zuri's spine. Before her stretched a desolate land. The river, once pure and serene, had turned into a murky stream of black water, reeking of decay. Piles of mud and trash lined the banks, like scars etched deep into the earth. In the distance, faint growls echoed, adding a sinister weight to the already suffocating air. This, Kiana said, her cold gaze sweeping over the polluted river, is the result of greed and destruction. If you wish to keep the necklace, you must restore life to this river. Zuri swallowed hard, her legs suddenly feeling heavy. She looked around, searching desperately for some sign of hope in the deadened landscape, but there was nothing, only emptiness and despair. How am I supposed to do this alone? Zuri stammered, fear lacing her voice. Kiana didn't respond. Without another word, she turned and left, leaving Zuri standing alone in the grim darkness, face to face with her daunting task. Zuri took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of doubt inside her. She stepped into the devastated land, her shoes sinking into the thick mud with every step. Each movement felt as if invisible hands were pulling her back, trying to hold her down. The stench of decay was overwhelming, forcing her to cover her mouth, but she pushed forward. She knew she had no other choice. She began to pick up pieces of trash scattered across the ground, using a sturdy branch to push aside the mud and debris clogging the river's flow. Her arms ached, and her hands were coated in grime, but she pressed on. Just as Zuri started to feel a sliver of progress, a deafening roar tore through the silence. She froze, her head snapping up as she scanned the shadows. From the darkness emerged a strange creature. Its red eyes glowed with fury, and its massive frame was coated in layers of black mud. Its guttural growls sent shivers down Zuri's spine. "You will not cleanse this place!" the creature roared, its voice like the grinding of stones dripping with hatred. Zuri stumbled back a few steps, every hair on her neck standing on end, but she knew she couldn't run. The river and the challenge depended on her. Her eyes darted around, searching for something to defend herself. Spotting a large branch nearby, she grabbed it, holding it tightly in her trembling hands. Her gaze locked onto the creature, and she steadied herself. "I won't let you stop me!" Zuri shouted, her voice ringing out against the oppressive silence. The creature charged at her, claws slicing through the air, aiming to tear everything apart. Zuri dodged just in time and swung the branch with all her might, striking its leg. The beast let out a screech of pain but didn't retreat. The battle raged on, each blow sapping Zuri's strength. Her arms burned, her legs wobbled, and every breath felt like a struggle. But deep inside, she knew she couldn't give up. With one final desperate swing, Zuri struck the creature with all her remaining strength. The beast staggered back, its glowing eyes narrowing in rage before it let out a final snarl and retreated into the shadows. Zuri collapsed to her knees, gasping for air, her body trembling. As the creature disappeared, she noticed a subtle change in the river. The water, once stagnant, began to move gently, as if in gratitude. Encouraged, Zuri pushed herself to her feet and resumed her work, clearing away the debris and unblocking the river's flow. Little by little, the murky water transformed. Its black hue faded, replaced by a clear, shimmering stream that reflected the soft light of the sky above. Zuri knelt by the riverbank, her hands cupping the now pure water. As the cool liquid touched her skin, she felt a new strength flood through her. A strength not of the body, but of the soul. For the first time, she truly believed in herself. Kiana reappeared, her gaze softer this time, a glimmer of approval in her eyes. "You have passed the first challenge," she said, her voice carrying a note of warmth. "But this is only the beginning. Prepare yourself for what lies ahead." Zuri rose to her feet, her eyes lingering on the restored river, its gentle flow whispering promises of life and renewal. A quiet pride swelled within her, but it was tempered by the uncertainty of what awaited her next. With a mix of determination and trepidation, she whispered to herself, "Whatever comes next, I'll face it." As the river sparkled behind her, Zuri stepped forward, ready for the unknown challenges ahead. After overcoming the first challenge, Zuri thought she had begun to understand the power and responsibility that came with the necklace. But as Kiana led her to a vibrant marketplace, Zuri realized that the second challenge would be far from easy. Before her was a lively market, filled with dazzling stalls. Light reflected off countless precious items, drenching the scene in a golden and silvery glow. Merchants shouted their pitches enthusiastically, each one vying for attention. Every stall displayed goods so enchanting that anyone passing by would be captivated. As Zuri stepped into the market, she was immediately overwhelmed by the sheer variety of treasures. A man at one stall held up a crown encrusted with diamonds, its brilliance so intense that she had to squint. "Young lady, this crown once belonged to a mighty king," he said, his voice rising and falling melodiously. "It will grant power and admiration to anyone who wears it." Zuri shook her head, sensing that something was amiss. She moved on and stopped at another stall, where a young woman displayed a bracelet made of pure gold. "This bracelet will bring you luck and wealth," the woman said, her eyes sparkling with confidence. Zuri gazed at the bracelet, feeling a momentary pull of temptation, but something about it felt hollow. Why does everything here seem to revolve around superficial splendor? Zuri wondered, her feet carrying her forward even as her mind swirled with doubt. After wandering through the marketplace, Zuri came to a modest stall tucked away in a quiet corner. There were no dazzling lights or enticing pitches, only an elderly woman sitting silently beside a few worn items. "What brings you here, young lady?" the woman asked, her voice gentle yet imbued with understanding. Zuri hesitated. "I'm looking for the most valuable item in this market," she replied, her voice uncertain but sincere. The woman didn't laugh or express surprise like the other merchants. She simply smiled softly, her hands lifting a small old handkerchief. The fabric was worn, and its simple embroidery had faded with time, but the outline of a small flower was still visible. "This is not gold or silver," the woman said, her gaze warm and storytelling, "but it carries the love of a mother for her child." Zuri looked at the handkerchief, and a wave of warmth filled her heart. There was no glamour here, no glinting jewels or promises of power, just a simple item that carried the weight of love and sacrifice. This is what I need," Zuri said firmly. She took the handkerchief, her hands trembling slightly as she felt its understated beauty. The moment Zuri grasped the handkerchief, the vibrant market around her began to dissolve. Stalls disappeared one by one, fading into nothingness as though they had never existed. Silence returned, and Kiana emerged from the soft glow of the dissipating light. "You have chosen wisely," Kiana said, her voice brimming with pride. "True worth is not found in glittering appearances, but in the hidden values that lie within." Zuri bowed her head, a quiet joy rising within her. This challenge had not only been a test, but also a valuable lesson about seeing the world beyond its surface. "But remember," Kiana continued, her gaze growing serious, "the final challenge will be the hardest. It will test not only your intellect, but also your heart and your capacity for sacrifice." Zuri drew a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. She had proven her worth twice, but she knew the hardest trial was yet to come. With a newfound resolve, Zuri prepared herself. She was ready to prove she deserved the necklace, but in the back of her mind, one question lingered. Would the strength of her heart be enough to conquer what awaited her? Zuri opened her eyes, and before her was the most haunting sight she had ever seen. The once peaceful village was now engulfed in flames, crimson tongues of fire devouring rooftops, while the crackling of burning wood sounded like anguished cries. Everywhere, villagers were in a state of panic. Shrieks of terrified children and the elderly echoed endlessly. Savage warriors, beast-like in appearance, rampaged through the chaos, destroying everything in their path. Their eyes were cold, merciless, focused solely on annihilation. "Zuri, this is your final challenge," Kiana said, appearing beside her. The soft blue glow emanating from her body was a faint beacon in the overwhelming chaos. Her voice rang clear, cutting through the cacophony. "You can use the power of the necklace to save the village, but to do so, you must give it up forever." Zuri felt as though time had stopped. She looked down at the shimmering necklace, resting against her chest. It was not just an ornament. It was a symbol of power, the very thing that had transformed her life. The necklace had granted her attention, admiration, and a sense of significance she had never known before. But now, it demanded of her the hardest decision she had ever faced. Her gaze swept over the scene. A small child clung tightly to their mother's hand, their wide, tearful eyes filled with fear. An elderly man had collapsed in the thick, choking smoke, struggling to crawl towards safety. Each image was like a dagger to Zuri's heart. She remembered all the necklace had given her, power, reverence, and the extraordinary feeling of being someone special. But what did those things matter when her village, the place that had raised her, was on the brink of total destruction? "Look closely, Zuri," Kiana said, her tone neither commanding nor pleading, but offering gentle guidance. "Power alone does not make a hero. It is the heart that defines one." Zuri's eyes locked onto the frightened gaze of a child. "I can't be selfish," she thought. Her heart ached, but deep down, she knew the answer had already taken root within her. "Take the necklace," Zuri said, her voice cutting through the chaos, steady and resolute. "I choose to save the village." Kiana smiled softly and extended her hand toward the necklace. A brilliant light radiated from it, and Zuri felt the power within her dissipate, vanishing along with the light. In an instant, the flames were extinguished, the once smoky skies turned clear and blue, and the savage warriors disappeared as though they had never existed. The villagers, stunned, began to emerge from their hiding places, glancing at each other in disbelief and relief. Their eyes turned towards Zuri, who stood in the midst of the clearing, exhausted but unbroken. To them, she was no longer the ordinary girl they had known. She was the hero who had saved them from ruin. Kiana stepped closer, placing a hand on Zuri's shoulder. "You have done well," she said, her voice filled with pride. "Your sacrifice has not only saved the village, but has also proven that you are worthy of true strength. The strength of the heart." Zuri looked around at the village coming back to life. Children were running and laughing, their joy replacing the cries of despair. The warmth of this moment filled her with a strange but profound happiness. I don't need the necklace to feel special, Zuri realized. I've found my true strength within myself. Kiana smiled one last time before fading into the light, leaving Zuri standing in the heart of the village she had just saved. Her heart swelled with pride and love, not for the power she had lost, but for the life she had helped restore. As the villagers gathered around her, their gratitude and awe were evident in their eyes. Zuri knew she had found her place, not through the extraordinary power of the necklace, but through the extraordinary strength of her choices. And though the flames were gone, the fire within Zuri's heart would burn forever, a beacon of courage, love, and sacrifice. When Zuri finished speaking, the necklace burst into a dazzling glow. Rays of light shot out, merging with the river as though it was returning to its rightful place. In an instant, the flames vanished, the air regained its tranquility, and the savage warriors disappeared as if they had never existed. The villagers emerged from their hiding spots, their faces filled with astonishment. Then, a cheer broke the silence, followed by an eruption of joyous cries. They rushed toward Zuri, calling her the hero of the village. Their eyes shone with gratitude and admiration. In the gentle glow of the sunset, Kiana appeared one last time. She stepped out of the mist, regal in her demeanor but with a warmth in her eyes that Zuri had never seen before. In her hands was another necklace, not glittering, not magical, but radiating a simple, profound beauty. "Zuri, you have proven yourself worthy," Kiana said, her voice like a soothing melody. She extended the necklace to Zuri. "This necklace holds no magic, but it is a symbol of your courage, honesty, and sacrifice. These are the true sources of strength." Zuri took the necklace, a flood of emotions welling up in her heart. She no longer felt a sense of loss. Instead, she was filled with a deep pride and a profound peace. From that day forward, Zuri became an inspiration to everyone in the village. She was not just the one who saved them from disaster, as she was a symbol of bravery and love. The story of Zuri and the necklace was passed down from generation to generation, reminding everyone that true power does not come from magic, but from the heart, courage, and sacrifice. Zuri stayed in the village, but she was no longer the quiet girl she once was. Every day, she inspired the villagers through simple yet meaningful acts. Children listened to her stories with wide, gleaming eyes, while adults learned to cherish the simple joys of life. But did Zuri's story truly end there? One evening, as Zuri sat by the river watching the moonlight dance upon the water, she heard a familiar whisper. "Zuri, your journey is far from over. This river still holds secrets you have yet to uncover." Zuri turned, but no one was there, only the gentle ripples on the water, as if the river itself was calling her. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, and for the first time she wondered, what else awaited her beyond this peaceful village? If this story moved or inspired you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Zuri will embark on another adventure? Don't forget to like, share, and follow the channel to stay tuned for more surprising and meaningful tales. Who knows? Zuri's journey might just be beginning. If you are part of the African American community, you are inheriting and taking pride in a rich and powerful cultural heritage, with stories that are not just memories, but also valuable life lessons. These folk tales connect us to the past and help preserve our cultural legacy. Let's watch, share, and spread these stories with friends in the US so that every lesson and every story is preserved and celebrated.